Have you ever felt like you were hitting an invisible ceiling? That you're doing all the things. You're meditating, you're receiving coaching, you're in therapy, you may even be doing frequency work, but there's something that's keeping you stuck. You may not know it, but you're likely struggling with the limitation of foundational distortion patterns. They block us from feeling truly limitless, happy, and free. There are 6 of them, and they're so deeply entrenched in the human experience, they're nearly invisible to us. In this episode, we're discussing what the 6 foundational distortion patterns are, how they shape so much of not only your reactions, but your life. And of course, most importantly, we'll be talking about how to release them. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please help us out by hitting the like button and leaving a comment below. It helps us get our content to more people like you. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing foundational distortion patterns.
What's a foundational distortion pattern?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we have lots of distortion patterns, lineage, cultural.
Yeah.
But what's a foundational one? What's the difference?
Yeah.
That's 2 questions, I know.
Yeah, why do we care? Because so a foundational distortion pattern is something that runs through the human experience. So you have it deep in your DNA, and it's because you're human. Oh. And the reason you care about it is because they're so deeply entrenched in the human experience, they really create some really deep limitation. It feels like you're hitting it like an invisible ceiling all the time because they run so deep.
Okay, so let me just ask, just what you said there, just to make sure it's really super clear for me. Mm-hmm. So it runs through the human experience.
Yeah.
So you're saying every single human being will have these foundational distortion patterns?
Yeah, to some degree.
Okay. And what I thought I heard was that this is the thing where you're getting ahead and then you hit a wall and you can't seem to break through the wall?
Yeah. So the way that we work as humans, okay, we're kind of a little bit, and I know this is a little bit off the deep end for like right at the beginning, but we have certain patterns or certain like programs that run through us that are like sort of foundational to who we are. And one of those settings is the setting of human. Like, what is it to be a human? And I know that sounds weird, but there's like a collective experience of humanity. And that is what I would call a global setting, or something that's like the same for everybody who's having a human experience, because you agree to have like this experience of humanness, of humanity.
Being physical would be...
is part of humanness. Having a gender is part of humanness.
Right, got you.
That type of thing.
Yep.
And so at that level of human, right at that very fundamental first set of programs, which creates your experience of you as a human, are the foundational distortion patterns. It's right there, and it runs deep in your DNA.
Okay. What you're saying too, right? So, I mean, it would be great to know why they're there, but I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So why are they there?
Yeah.
And if they're there, are they supposed to stay there? Mm-hmm. And then if they're not, then you can help us. Like, do you get rid of them, or do we just transcend them? What's you know?
Yeah. So I'm going to try and answer all those 3 questions.
Great.
Okay. I'll do my best. Remind me if I forget though. Okay. So why are they there? And I think your second question was.
Are they supposed to be
there? Are they
there?
supposed to be there? Yeah. So the reason they're there is because in order to have form, in order to have humanness, you have to drop in your vibrational level. So there are a lot of new people watching this. So what does that mean? Okay. So, for me, everything is vibrating. Yeah. And scientists have been talking about this for a really long time. Yeah. And what dictates the form of what the thing is dependent on the vibrational level. So if you even take the really physical example of water, and the vibrational level is higher or faster, it's steam. And when that vibrational level slows down, it becomes liquid water. And when that slows down even more, it becomes ice or form or density, solid, right? Yeah. So if you take that same idea and you extrapolate it really far out to consciousness, to, a very highly vibrating consciousness that has many different names. It has, some people call it the creator, some people call it pure source, some people call it the divine, some people call it the one, whatever you want to call that very highly resonating consciousness from which everything comes and to which everything returns. You have that vibrating. And when that slows down a vibrational level, it creates frequencies. And when it slows down a vibrational level even more, it becomes energy, and then slows down even more, it becomes form. Yeah. Okay. So now that, with that said, when you journey from the state of being consciousness, right, not embodied, and you drop into physicalness, in order to be able to do that, to be able to have the experience of being human, you have to drop through something that I call the veil of forgetting. And I'm not the only one who calls it this. There's many other people who will talk about the veil of forgetting. Yep. And when you drop through the veil of forgetting, you have to agree to two things to have the human experience. One is you have to forget that you're infinite, indestructible consciousness, intrinsically connected to the one, which is like a huge forgetting, because you really, honest to God, believe that you're separate and that you're disconnected from the divine. That is a tremendous shift that happens.
Okay, I feel sick just even listening to it.
Yeah, it's a horrible thing. A lot of people kind of get a little bit of a whiplash when they drop through the veil. And then the other thing, of course, is that you are to experience linear time, because linear time is what allows you to have past, present, future. It allows your brain, which cannot process everything happening all at once. Yeah. Right? So you with consciousness, because you're vibrating really high, know and feel everything. Yeah. But your little brain is just like, oh my God, too much input. Like, think about how overwhelmed we are in our days, right? When you're trying to like schedule stuff and like get dinner on the table and do your work and answer the email and like, get your kids to school. I mean, with the amount of overwhelm that happens with that, just imagine if you actually were aware of everything happening all at once, like your mind would explode.
And never mind staying centered, space.
Exactly, and not going insane. So you agree to something called linear time, right? Which gives your brain a way to process time.
So this is a global human thing.
Yes, exactly. Right. So when you fall through the veil of forgetting, and so my point in this long explanation is that is the source of many of the foundational distortion patterns. Right. Because it's when we disconnect from that oneness, the knowingness that we are part of the everything and that everything is part of us. Yeah. That is like a huge, massive, I'm going to call it a shift, but that seems like such a lame, small word for what it is.
Slap to
me. Yeah. It's really jarring because it's so contrary to the truth of the universe. Yeah. And so the reason we have all that, just so people are like, okay, well, that sounds freaking horrible.
I know. Why would we do that?
Yeah. The reason that you're doing it is, first of all, to experience density and form, right? Mm-hmm. So we are under the illusion that we are mortal. You know what I mean? We all know we're going to die, right? But that this life is the end all be all. Okay, that's my point. Yeah. So it's not about the mortality, it's about the belief that this is the only thing, that the physicalness is the only thing, and that we believe that we're separate. So part of it is to transcend that. Yeah. To transcend the illusion of what I just said. Yeah. To reclaim and remember that you are, an aspect of you anyway, is infinite, indestructible consciousness, and that you are part of the oneness, because it takes a tremendous amount of courage, really, and also discipline to increase your vibrational rate so you realize that. It's not, because, a lot of people can have an intellectual understanding of the oneness. I mean, for God's sake, it's only stickers everywhere, on certain health food stores. Yeah. But no one necessarily who reads those things, or not no one, but many people who read those things don't necessarily understand that or feel that way. They intellectually get it, but they don't really feel it or understand it.
It's not embodied.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So my point is, the reason that they're there is for you to raise your vibrational level and to remember who you truly are, because that gives you a tremendous amount of momentum that ripples out into, now this is getting a little complex, into that greater aspect of you, which gives you more momentum on that plane to rise as well.
So what I think I'm hearing you say, correct me, of course, if I'm misunderstanding. So they're there. Yeah. And they're there for us to transcend. Yeah. That just sounds like we're doing the opposite. Oh, so why did we drop in the first place then? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's why would we do that to ourselves? Yeah. Just to remember?
Well, to experience the physicalness, because in the physicalness, I know this sounds like totally dumb. You're like, I don't know why I would do this. We have all these emotions. We have all of these thoughts. It's very intense. And it's kind of this thing that you get to experience. So just, okay, I'm going to back up. If you're infinite indestructible consciousness, things don't feel that pressing, right? You're infinite, indestructible consciousness, aware that you're part of the one.
Could be pretty boring.
Yeah, it's kind of like not that stressful. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, I mean, I'm going to learn and grow, but like, everything's pretty good, you know? Like, But when you have the embodied experience, it's much more intense.
Yeah.
So we believe all these crazy things, and we believe our emotions, and we feel like our thoughts are real and define us, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And we believe that our lives are the end-all, be-all, being this life.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in all of that, it's like the incredible obstacle course or an incredibly dynamic, sentient video game that you're going through to remember what you truly are and who you truly are. Because, like I said, if you can transcend all that and you can come into this form of spiritual awakening that we've talked about, because a lot of people, I don't know what they think spiritual awakening is, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
Spiritual
the messy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's the messy stuff, the remembering of who you truly are. That is spiritual awakening. And so when you have that, like I said, it gives you a tremendous amount of speed or vibrational rate, which then bumps up into a greater aspect of yourself. That part of you that's infinite indestructible consciousness is pretty like blissed out. It moves up in its resonance because of that what you're experiencing as a human being.
Okay. And I think what I'm picking up for this conversation is that in this moment, in this lifetime, in this consciousness level, as it is morphing itself, the point is to do all that within the human body.
Yes.
Is that the part that's key as well?
Exactly, because a lot of times, you know, a lot of people have heard of ascended masters.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, even in the holy books like the Bible and different traditions, they'll talk about beings who, you know, were lived for a few hundred years.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and so it's not like myth.
Yeah.
It's what they were able to do in terms of how they were able to be infinite indestructible consciousness, having an embodied experience.
Yeah.
So there is something about that awakening process in the body that's really important.
Yes, especially in this moment, right?
Yes, exactly. When consciousness is rising.
And it's rising. Okay, right. This is a left hook question.
Okay.
And maybe it's not one that can be answered in this podcast, because I've always wondered, especially now when we talk about the consciousness is morphing and shifting.
Yeah.
And it's been predicted that this time would come.
Yeah.
So we're right in it. And now we're starting to understand that we have to rise our consciousness or raising consciousness within the physical body.
Yeah.
So the two have to get together.
Yeah.
So I often wonder, you know, who created the body?
Oh.
Right? Who created the physical body? Because we have so many different physical bodies.
Yeah.
Were they just sitting there like deflated balloons before we decided to drop in consciousness, and then we arrive in the balloon and blow it up and become a living human?
Yeah.
And we become animated. I mean, are they hanging on coat hangers somewhere?
No.
Choose your physical body.
Well, it's more like it's a hologram. So if you watch episode, I believe it's 99, which is all about how the rendering works, meaning how is the physical body created.
Right.
So you have this thing called the spirit body, which is a sphere at arm's length all around you that's of light, and it projects within itself the physical body, okay, the rendering.
Okay.
So I know it's going to sound odd potentially to a lot of people, but the physical body, at least the skin of it, you know, like our hair color and like what our bodies look like, our skin color and all that sort of stuff. If you change the code of the sphere, you change the rendering. We just have forgotten how to have mastery over our rendering. And I know that sounds totally like wild and potentially very science fiction-y, and that's fine. But really, we haven't gotten to the point in our consciousness where we are able to do that. But part of it is, as you rise in your resonance, you have more authority or more ability or more awareness to be able to shift things like what you experience in your incarnation. You get to choose certain parameters and you don't forget as much. We've just been asleep for so long. We just didn't know that we even had choice, you know? And so what happens, and I would recommend if anybody wants to know about what happens in reincarnation and how you get to choose and what all that sort of stuff. We had a whole episode on what happens after you die. So I'd recommend watching that if you want to know how that works.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think what I'm getting at as well is that it's not the way that, like, I don't want to blame religion, but, that was the level of understanding.
Yeah.
That, somehow the body was there and then the soul was somewhere else. And then God is way there somewhere. You have to kind of... But what I'm hearing you say is that we render this physical, which also means that we can heal ourselves.
Yes,
right?
We can heal ourselves. We can overcome the foundational distortion patterns. We're getting to this point in consciousness where we ourselves are vibrating high enough by releasing your distortion patterns, however you're doing that, however you're quickening your vibration, to be able to access more information, more knowledge, more awareness of what it is that we can do, which not just will, but is currently right now changing the human experience.
Okay, so let's come back to the distortion patterns now. These are foundational distortion patterns, and let's go through them. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, shall we just start at number 1 and then maybe tease it a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that for just people to understand, as I'm talking about this, you'll notice how these will show up in your life. Okay? And so the first one is absolute scarcity. Now, this one is such a big deal that we did an entire podcast just on absolute scarcity.
Yeah.
And it basically has to do with you need something outside of you, whether it's a relationship, it's an experience, and it's an object, whatever it is, to feel whole, complete, worthy. And otherwise, you're not going to be enough or have enough.
Yeah.
And so that's absolute scarcity because you're always in this state where you're incomplete. So you need to chase something in order to feel like you're enough.
Okay. So that's kind of like the example that I think we used was you work hard to get the job, you get the job title, but you're still not feeling like you're enough.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Or if you think to yourself, if I just lost 10 pounds, then I'd be happy.
Yeah, and then you lose the 10 pounds and you're still not happy.
And you're like, I feel like I need to lose another 5. Or I need to change the way I cut my hair, or I need to, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is.
There's
or
always something.
Yeah. Or if only I were more confident, then I would be more successful, and then I'd be happy.
Yeah.
Whatever the thing is, it's like you need something else to be happy and whole and complete and feel worthy of all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you say your second one is then?
So the second one is something that I call spirit debt. Now, it's going to sound, you're like, well, spirit debt, what's that mean? It's that feeling, and I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this can identify this if you think about it. It's when you have to give more and more in order to receive less and less. So, for example, let's imagine that you are in a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
And you have to give more of your time, more of your life force, more of your focus in order to get less and less from them. You know what I mean? In terms of attention or love or adoration or whatever it is. It could also be something like, if it's not a relationship, it would be success, for example. Okay, so like in order to have success, you have to give up much more of your time. You have to work harder. You know what I mean? You have to perhaps make more connections with more people that you don't necessarily want to, you know, in order to have that quote unquote success. And you can just say the same thing for abundance, whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's where you feel like you're chasing it.
So the scales are tipped.
Exactly.
Right. So the amount that's work you're doing to get whatever it is you're trying to get is far greater than what you're actually receiving in return.
Yes.
That's spirit debt.
Yeah. And it feels like you're just on a bigger and bigger and bigger hamster wheel. You're like, oh my God, I don't know if I can keep this up.
Oh, and that I can only imagine that would feed into the absolute scarcity.
Yeah. Yeah. They combine in a way that is really not awesome.
Double whammy.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
It's really intense. And some people really run both these patterns really deeply. And it can feel like despair because you're just like, it's never enough. I can't do enough. It's just like this, like, oh my God, it's like overwhelming, you know, and life feels pretty horrible.
I'm just going off a little bit because I would like to just get through the 6, you know, I'm kind of like, well, just give me them. Let's get on it. But how come some people have them more than others?
Yeah.
Especially with spirit debt, because it sounds like that should be a global thing.
It is a global thing. And it depends on the level at which you experience it, depending on your lineage, right? How much they amplified it,
Right.
What your religious patterning has been, even if you aren't religious now. So there are many people now who are raised and they don't have a particular religion, but their ancestors did.
Right.
So meaning your great-great-grandparents definitely had a religion of some form, and that's in the field that's you. And also past lives, all that stuff can really exacerbate some of these distortions and sort of reinforce them and make them louder.
Right. And so if in another lifetime I had caught on at some level that I needed to do the inner work, that means like in this lifetime I might have a little less of these patterns. Is that
totally.
the same kind of thing?
Yeah, so let's just imagine that one of your lifetimes you were, I don't know, like a Tibetan monk or something like this. Okay, and you've done a lot of work in that lifetime or other lifetimes similar to that, where part of your focus in that lifetime was examining attachment.
Yeah.
For example, right? Or whatever. I mean, whatever. I'm just picking that one. But, you know, it doesn't matter. Whatever the thingy is that you were seeking, or you were a Sufi and you understood your connection to the divine in a different way, for example. Yeah. Right? So in this lifetime, how deeply you run these patterns will shift because of what you did in those lifetimes.
Right. Okay. So that answers that question.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we have the absolute scarcity, spirit debt, and then what would you say, third one?
So the third one is fear of loss, because as humans, we're really scared of this, you know, whether it's the loss of our lives, you know, so death, whether it's the loss of losing someone we love really dearly to something horrible happening to them, whether it's death or them getting sick or moving far away or whatever it is, that's there, or even of like a business, or even like survival is a fear of loss, right? Like, oh my God, if there's a war coming and you're just like, like my safety, I'm afraid of losing that, you know? And so we have such a strong fear of loss, and it gets stronger when you don't have an awareness of what I call your big S self.
Right.
The aspect of you that's infinite, indestructible consciousness that has a bigger perspective. Because sometimes when you have loss, it actually turns into something that's lucky, but you don't have the perspective to notice it, right? Because there's that famous story, right, of this man. Many people might have heard it already, but it's like the man has a son, and the son falls off his donkey and breaks his leg.
Yes.
And then everyone says, "Oh, that's so terrible. I'm so sorry that your son has now broken his leg." But it turns out that actually, you know, a war is coming, and they have to draft soldiers, but the son has a broken leg, so he can't go. And everyone says to him, "Oh, you're so lucky." And then the next thing is, then his donkey gets ill, and you know, whatever, and he can't plow the fields, and everyone says, "Oh, that's so terrible." Right? So on and on it goes like this.
Yeah.
Right? But my point is, so we fear loss as humans because we really like certainty.
Yes.
And our minds like to feel like that gives us safety. It's like this false equation. Certainty makes me safe, but it doesn't really make you safe. It's just a false illusion of certainty. That's all. And as you start to release this distortion pattern and you start to become more aware of your connection to pure source, and as you become more aware of yourself as infinite, indestructible consciousness, or at least the aspect of you that is, this fear of loss diminishes because you recognize that you don't know everything in that particular moment, and you don't know why something's happening for you yet.
Yeah. And I would like to add, I think you recognize as well that it's so hard hanging on to that certainty.
To
try and keep that certainty.
Yeah.
You work so hard to keep it because you need to have this false illusion that it's secure, yet the whole time you're working hard to keep it.
Yeah, I know, and it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
And I've seen people get sick from it. It's really terrible. So we will do a lot to avoid the uncertainty, and we will do a tremendous amount to avoid loss, and that's why it's such a fundamental distortion or a foundational distortion pattern.
Okay, so you did mention the big S self, and I believe that's what is covered in Coherence Mastery, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's a huge thing.
Huge thing, yeah. So we give a course called Full Spectrum Coherence Mastery, and in it we address the 6 foundational distortion patterns, in addition to really cultivating this sense of the big S self and releasing the distortion patterns that keeps you in the little S self or the ego mind perspective, where you are terrified of losing stuff and you really need certainty and you have to control everything because if not, all hell's going to break loose.
Yeah.
You know, all that sort of stuff. And it's a really important class because, you know, I talk a lot like I am now about why things are the way they are in frequency work. And then we do the frequency work, and then I actually give strategies and tips and tactics.
Great tips and strategies. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so right. So that's the third one that we've just done. And now we're going to do the fourth one?
Yeah. So the fourth one is the illusion of lack.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait. Okay. So what's the difference between absolute scarcity and the illusion of lack?
Okay. So absolute scarcity is when you feel like you need something in order to feel worthy, to feel whole, complete. Okay. The illusion of lack has to do with the fact that you believe that you don't have access to everythingness, to the limitless. You actually believe that you are limited in some way and separate.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's got to be a huge one.
Yes, because we all have it.
So how does that show up in somebody's daily life? If you were going to give an example of how to recognize that that pattern is running.
Yeah. So it's even like, and I'll give something that sounds a little bit contrary. So like, you know how people will talk about manifestation a lot and a lot of people want to manifest?
Yeah.
A lot of times people will manifest in lack. Meaning they don't really believe they have access to everything, right? If not, why the hell would you be manifesting in the first place? I mean, like if I had the car,
it's
then
counterintuitive.
Yeah, right? Like if I had the car, why would I, need to manifest it? But the thing is fundamental in that assumption is that you are in lack. You don't have access to it. And you're really, really, really hoping that this will give you what it is that you want, but you can't really get.
Yeah, okay.
Do you see?
Yes.
So even in how we manifest, it's based in this foundational distortion pattern of I'm limited, I can't have that, like it's not accessible to me. So that whole assumption, which you're like, isn't that just normal? I mean, like, of course I can't get everything. I'm not a billionaire. I mean, obviously, if I could have everything, then I could really buy whatever I wanted. Exactly. That is part of the illusion of lack. And the thing is, when you start to recognize that you are, an aspect of you is infinite indestructible consciousness and that you can manifest anything, you have to be high enough in vibration to realize that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a thinking thing because I don't care how much you tell yourself that you can do it. Part of you is just like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it doesn't seem real to you because you're still running that pattern.
Yeah.
Right. So until you clear that pattern enough and you start to raise your resonance enough and you're like, actually, yeah, I can create anything because I create everything. You step into the authority that you have as co-creator.
Yeah, yeah. And if I may add that you have everything, you already have it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just like you say, get the frequency aligned.
Yes.
And then that comes into your field.
Yes, and release a distortion that keeps you from having it in the first place.
Yeah.
That blocks you.
And I was also, as you were talking, I'm thinking there is a similar, a similar response for us as humans just to recognize the pattern that's running in that the relationship with the one, right?
Absolutely.
And we think we haven't got it.
Yes.
So we have to work hard to get it.
Yeah, because it's out there somewhere.
So there's somewhere.
And we have to be more perfect to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
we have to be a good girl or a good boy.
Yeah.
Or we have to do all these kind acts to get it or to deserve it.
Yeah, exactly. Or repeat the mantras how many times or wear this and sit here and pray in this way. Like you have your whatever practices you need to. And ultimately, your connection to the relationship, your connection to the divine is within you. It's already there. It exists. It's about clarifying it.
You exist because of it.
Yeah, exactly. It animates you. It's why you're alive. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, right. That's good. That's good examples.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the next one?
All right. So the number 5 distortion pattern is the illusion of separateness.
Okay, so we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, in the very beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that coming through the veil and forgetting?
Yes, exactly. Where we feel separate and disconnected and we feel lonely. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't understand loneliness. I mean, I think we've all felt lonely, right? Yeah. So the fact that you feel lonely is because you believe that you are separate from the one. Yeah. If you fundamentally were at a vibrational level where you felt your connection to everythingness, you would never feel alone or lonely because you're not. That's why it's an illusion. Yeah. You are fundamentally and intrinsically and forever intertwined with the one. And we as humans, because we've fallen through the veil of forgetting and because of all the heaviness of our distortion patterns, really believe that we're separate. Like we wander around thinking, oh, I'm separated from the divine, I'm separated from other people, I'm separated from the earth, I'm separated from everything. But and that's why we can feel such malaise. We can be like, what's the point?
Yeah.
But when you start to feel that connection to everythingness, you're like, oh, life is the point.
Yeah.
Expressing this amazing, beautiful, magnificent expression of who I am is the point because it's life experiencing itself. Yeah. That is the point.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so with that as well, can that also apply to feeling separate from each other?
Yes, humans. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like you said, we're all animated by the same, force.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, how you get that, it's like there's like a physical confirmation that this exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so to feel separate from another human being is like saying, well, you're not really, this high level, high vibrating consciousness, whatever you want to call it, pure source. Yeah. To have that illusion that you're separate from them is like, wait, are we?
Yeah.
I'm only doing this for me.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, exactly. It's true. And we always think, I'm doing it for my family or the people that are within my circle or whatever. But the thing is, as you're saying, we are all unique expressions of the one. Mm-hmm. So, of course, we're interrelated.
Yeah.
We're just different fragments of the same thing expressed differently.
Yeah.
So we're all, as you're saying, connected to each other. And when your resonance rises, you start to feel that more.
Yeah.
And so therefore, and it's funny because right now in our world, if you look at the political forum and all that sort of stuff, there's a lot at stake in creating divisiveness. Mm-hmm. I am different from you. I believe different things from you. Therefore, we are not the same. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I can treat you worse than I would treat people that I consider to be like me.
Yep.
And that's fundamentally that distortion pattern that we're talking about, which is the illusion of separation that's being reinforced and reinforced and reinforced.
Yeah, that's a huge one at the moment, right?
Yeah, really big. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's not go there. Let's just go to the last one. We'll move on from there.
Okay.
Number 6.
Number 6, the sixth and final, is low self-worth.
Yeah.
So feeling like you're not deserving or you're not worthy is a huge foundational distortion pattern.
Oh my goodness, for like everything.
Everything. So whether you don't feel like you're worthy of the divine, whether you not feel like you're not worthy of abundance, on all kinds of levels, people. Okay, I'm not just talking about money, right? So whether it's an abundance of love, an abundance of connection, abundance of community, abundance of money, abundance of fill in the blank, fun, silly moments, whatever your thing is.
Speaking up in a crowd.
Yeah. Synchronicities, whatever. That is such a foundational pattern that stops us from experiencing all of that stuff. It's crazy how deep that runs and how much that prevents you from really experiencing what it is that you yearn for. It's fascinating and terrible at the same time that much of what people desire or yearn to manifest, they do not feel like they're worthy of experiencing.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like a gatekeeper
Totally.
one to me, right? It's like the gates are locked until you deal with that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how can you have that feeling of belonging if you can't even feel like you're worthy or even knocking on the door?
It shuts our experience down and limits it so much on so many levels. So that's why it's one of the foundational distortion patterns.
Okay, so we've covered all 6. You've given examples of that. I know you're going to give us a GFC, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
So the GFC. So now these are 6 huge foundational distortion patterns. All right. So if you really want to if you recognize them in yourself, you're like, oh my God, right? Like, okay, well, I got to address some of this stuff. Then I really suggest the full spectrum coherence mastery because that will be your best, most thorough path to addressing them.
And the coherence mastery is something that you can do at home in your own time, right? It's paced. You do it your way when you need to do it.
Yeah.
And it's moduled. Yeah. Everything's got lessons within the module.
Modules, yeah.
That's structure for people that like. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. It's true. Yeah, it's very structured, so it's easy to follow. And so for this GFC, it's funny, a lot of people are weirdly attached to these patterns. I know you're like, why would I be attached to these things that are screwing up my life?
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want them. I mean, I just heard what they were. They sound like crap. I don't want them. But the thing is, you know what they are. And you're used to having them. And your lineage is used to having them. And there's story around it. And how you identify with each other is based on these distortion patterns. So what we're going to do in this particular GFC is start to release the distortions around your attachment to these distortion patterns.
That reminds me of, the old baggy pair of track pants that I would never chuck away.
I know which ones you're talking about.
Exactly, because they were comfy and I knew them and then like they really did look horrendous. But like, it was so hard for me to give them up
Yeah.
and buy a new because I didn't know what I was getting. And would they fit? And would I like them? Would the material be as soft? I can totally relate to being attached.
But you did it though.
I did.
You finally got it. And
I finally got rid of
we
them.
should have just burned them. But we finally were like, yay! The diaper truck beds have left the building.
Yeah, with all the stains on them.
Yeah, so that is what we're going to be doing in the GFC.
Excellent. I think I might need to do this one. Yeah.
So for those of you who would like to start to release some of the attachment to these foundational distortion patterns so you can experience life differently, I strongly recommend listening to the group frequency calibration associated with this episode. And if you know someone who could use this, please share this video with them. We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear on the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.